Well, here we are, the final morning after in Ahmedabad. We've got a couple of hours to go before the flight home, and it's time once again, Harmy, yet again, a night of reflection for us and for the England team. And yet again, it was a thrashing last night, and it's still a thrashing this morning. At 142 runs, it's been a disappointing tour results-wise. We'll hear from Baz in a minute.
Yeah, disappointing results. Disappointing tour results-wise. Bit copy and paste of what we've been saying for the last 11 days. These are good. They're good side in their own back garden. I said last night England are out of their depth, and I think they are when they're playing in this environment. Bilateral series against India's best team. There's been a lot said, a lot of accusations, and a lot of talking about training methods. And at the end of the day, the quality of the game, the method of the way we're trying to play, and the understanding of the situation, I think, is things that have worried me on this trip. Because are these England's best players? Yes, they are. I mean, no Ben Stokes. Moeen Ali finished a couple of years ago. Johnny Besto and Jason Roy's gone. I'm talking about from when we had the best team in the world. These are roles that we've tried to identify and fill. I'm not convinced we fill in. We're close to filling them, especially on the second spinner front. Understanding the situation in the middle of the game, like we've talked about before the series starts, about the slow laps, and about understanding, like Bumble said last night, it's 300 balls, and the method that we're playing. And then the top's coming. I think the top might be coming. I don't think we'll ever get Ryan Besto replaced, but I think Phil Salt and Ben Duckett got England off to a start in three games, and I think that might be coming. And that's probably the closest we found from a method how we're trying to play at mirroring what Owen Morgan's team had, because you've got to look when you were the best and why were you the best and how you were the best. And I think there's a few places where we're just lacking. Are we better in certain circumstances? Probably not. But we got to remember we are playing. I played 9 Ashes Test matches in Australia against that great side, and I won once. You go to the best, you play against the very best, and if you're not good enough, or you're not quite on it, you get beat. And I think England have been beat by the very best here.
Okay, there's a lot more to talk about and to dissect and discuss, but I think it's very important to listen to what Brendon McCullum said. He's got a very positive attitude, as we all know, but there was no talk of re-evaluating their approach. In fact, quite the opposite. Here's Brendon McCullum after that final game.
So Baz, thanks for joining us. 3-0 ODI series defeat, your first tour as white ball head coach. How do you reflect on it?
Look, it's been an enjoyable tour. Obviously the results haven't been where we wanted them to be, especially with the hopes that we had coming into the series, but I think the guys have learned a lot. We've been outplayed by a very good Indian side in their own conditions, and we ain't their first team that's happened to, but I think we've got to make sure that we tidy up on a couple of areas in the next in the next week before we arrive at the Champions Trophy, but anticipating that a fresh look in different conditions and a fresh opposition will hopefully be just on it.
And you've had your foot in the door now. What have you seen over the last couple of weeks? What have you learned as a coach?
I guess it's probably slightly different from the test setup, which that was always going to be the case, but I guess the fast-paced nature of the game, travel, play sort of scenarios, is making sure that you still maintain morale within the group, keep guys fresh and energised and ready to go out there and exhibit their skills. But I've learned a lot. I think there's guys in our team who are incredibly talented. If we can add a little bit of craft and get be able to get ourselves a bit of confidence within the dressing room, which is ultimately, I guess, the task of us as coaches, then we'll see some of that talent flourish on the stage. But look, I think it's been a good tour. So much good will come from this tour, albeit the results are very disappointing, but that's the nature sometimes when you come up against a very good side in their own conditions.
You mentioned about the travel play. Does that sort of help that the players don't have time to dwell on defeats, that they're straight back into the cauldron in a couple of days?
Yeah, it can do. Yeah, it definitely can. As long as you're able to, I guess, park whatever's happened previously and turn the page on that and still walk out there and confident and clear in your mind as well you possibly can. But sometimes it can be quite difficult as well if you've maybe had a tough couple of performances in a row. You can it can be a challenge, but can also be a blessing as well. But I think ultimately it's that's the beauty of playing this format and the demands that it puts on you. But we've had a great time. The people of India have been amazing. The full houses we've played in front of. We haven't played our best cricket, but we've certainly had a great time, and hopefully what we've learned on this trip will hold us in good stead for the next assignment.
How important is perspective, the fact that you are playing India in India, probably one of the best teams in the world, not to get too down with this result and not confidence ahead of the Champions Trophy next week?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've got to maintain the morale within the group, keep confidence levels high, or build confidence levels up as well, and make sure when we do hit a fresh environment against a fresh opposition, then we're able to go out there and play our best cricket. But these guys are so good. Like, in their own conditions, India are an outstanding cricket team, and I think we've seen across all formats in international cricket over the last few years, like how good teams are in their own on their own soil. And we expect to be good in England. We need to improve a little bit when we travel abroad, but it's been a great learning opportunity for us, and I'm sure we'll bounce back from this.
And obviously there's been a lot of criticism recently about your training, but you only have to look at the squad to see how many injuries there are. So how hard is it to find that balance between getting them to improve in alien conditions, but also making sure they are fit and firing when they do get on the park?
Well, firstly, it's factually incorrect. The whole statement that we don't train. We've trained plenty right throughout. Guys have come from a lot of cricket as well. I think it's an easy thing to have as a throwaway line to say guys don't train hard enough when the results aren't right. Look, we've got a style and a method which we believe in. We've got guys who are battling injuries and trying to make sure that we've got enough bodies out on the field, knowing that we've got a huge assignment coming up in a week or two as well. And ultimately it's factually incorrect what's been said, and we disagree with it, and we'll stay true to what we believe in.
And just finally, ahead of the Champions Trophy next week, how much belief do you still have? I know you want to commit to a way of playing, but there's a balance between getting results at the same time. So how hard has it been just to stay to your methods and stay true to your way of playing?
Yeah, well, that's ultimately judged on results, right? From our point of view, we've got to try and strip away the fear of failure that results can bring. And the guys are fiercely determined and competitive. You take that off the table and you say that's not, you don't have to ever doubt that. But how do you allow an environment to be able to provide the freedom and the clarity of thought to be able to go out there and allow your talent to come out? And that's ultimately what we try and do within the group that we're building, and that's what we'll try and do over the next week as well. Give the guys a freshen up in Abu Dhabi, make sure all the bodies are fit and ready to go. We've got a full squad to be able to pick from come that first game against Australia. We do that, hopefully we walk a little bit taller and we play a little bit better, and ultimately we end up getting better results as well.
It's Brendon McCullum speaking to our one and only Scott Taylor. It's a lot to ask about there, Harmy. Do you know what? It occurs to me that the modern, and I'm talking modern, literally the last 3 or 4 years, there's so little 50-over cricket played by the top international players that it's just going to sound daft, but I think they've forgotten that 50 overs is also a test of defence. England want to entertain and hit boundaries and make lots of runs, but you were talking about the slow laps that you have to put in sometimes, and 50 overs is a test of defence as well as attack.
It is, and a test of the defence, a test of your cricket, your cricket, not only your cricket mental sense, your cricket brain cells, understanding what the game is and what, I think what I've found in this sort of series so far is that England get to a certain point and then it falls apart. Now, what I mean by that is they're getting to 20 to 30 and then getting out. It's like, what I mean about cricket brain cells is understanding what surface you're playing on, the air environment you're playing in. What's a good score on this wicket? Is it a good wicket that you can come on and hit through the line of the ball and make it easier for the next person to come in? If it's not, you take responsibility and go, do you know what? I'm going to have to work a little bit harder here to value my wicket, to take the game a little bit deeper, earn the right to then be the fast laps in the last 10 overs with wickets in hand. Bumble talked last night about method, and England probably need to change their method. Brendon McCullum there. A lot of it good words, A lot of it good words, and if you're in the dressing room, good words I'd want to hear. What I'm struggling to work out is that if in that dressing room, are we talking about cricket savvy? Are we talking about the finer things, what's going to make a team better, i.e. game situation, who you're playing against, what areas you feel as though you can take a risk in, what areas you're not. Bumble talked last night about a whiteboard up. I don't see that. I'd be very surprised if there's a whiteboard up in that dressing room. I mean, there's been a lot of criticism of, in this team always gets criticised about the amount of golf they play and the amount of training. Now,
creating a happy atmosphere.
Well, you create a happy atmosphere by winning. But Brendon McCullum said you're judged on results, and he's going to be judged on results, and the results in this series haven't been good enough. Simple as that. So you don't throw it all out, but I think what you do is you identify which ones can go on this journey and which ones can't. He's already made some big calls coming out here, like Reece Topley, Sam Curran, Will Jacks. Not picking a sort of second spinner from sort of the county game, as in like a Liam Dawson type. Made some big calls on that front to identify these aren't good enough for me. These are the ones I want. So there have been big calls made. The training with it, this is a fit side. Are they training the right things? Good question. Came from Kevin Peterson last night. Now, one thing I will say is if you're going to criticise and you're going to go heavy on criticism, look in the mirror. I think Kevin Peterson can argue and about training, because for me, he was the best player I ever played with. Why? Physically, he was fitter than anybody else. Physically, mentally, he was stronger than most.
He knew how to train.
He knew how to train. That's the thing. Training for the sake of training is one thing, but knowing what you're trying to do. Kevin Peterson had a problem with left arm spinners. He went on tour, and all of a sudden, he had no interest in facing seamers. He had no interest in facing right arm spinners. He'd stand there for 40 minutes and just have net bowler after net bowler after net bowler of left arm spin bowling at him. He still had a massive hole between his bat and his pad when it was coming through, but that's what I mean by knowing how to train. So there is a difference between training hard, training for the sake of training. At the minute, Brendon McCullum doesn't feel as though that level of criticism is warranted, and he knows best. One thing I will say, and very rarely do I want to sort of, when you go in behind, talk about when you're being invited into their private space. I went up to see Mark Wood in their team environment the other day, and there was the golfers and then the lads who didn't play golf. When you come to a place like India or Pakistan and you're in a confined space and you can't go out because it's you get mobbed everywhere and everything that goes with it and the pressure of the series, you need a release. And I sat there for 3 or 4 hours with some lads who were enjoying themselves, a game of cards, game of pool or whatever. But I came away from that going, I am so pleased this team have got golf. I really am, because what they're doing is they're in their days off, they're going, and some people might say they should have been training. That's their argument. But you've got to release the human beings, and the human element of being on tour is not as simple as just sitting in a hotel room staring at 4 walls, because you'll go mad. So the release of going out to a game of golf, release of being around like a fun environment when you're away from the game is so important. So the golf brush they get hammered with, I don't think that's fair. Kevin Peterson, he might have valid points about the arguments of training. I get that, but the golf one, I think people have got to look beyond that, because when you're on tour, days off can be torturous.
Yeah, Yeah.
So these are just little things that go on a tour, which can add the pressure to get to a situation where you go in a 2020 game, which they play a lot of. It's just, if I get in trouble, crash, bang, wallop. Game's finished in 120 balls. Like you say, in a 50 over game, there's a lot more nuance into how that game is developed. And I think that, for me, is probably what's England's biggest problem, is understanding how to finish from 1 over to 50 overs. Owen Morgan's was, let's have a right hard go at it, be as aggressive as we possibly can and see where we get to. If you get bowled out in 44, at least we've kept the run rate up and we'll have a decent score. I don't think this team is as good or good enough to play that method, because they haven't got the Ryan Besto at the top, they haven't got the Stokes in the middle, they haven't got the Moeen Ali to come at the bottom end. I don't think this team's quite good enough to play that Owen Morgan way.
Okay, well, I'm very glad you brought up the Owen Morgan way. Let's finish this. We've been talking about the batting there. Morgan was a strategist. He was a planner. He knew what he wanted before he knew who he wanted, right? So for him, variety in the bowling attack was absolutely crucial. He wanted a left armour. He had an attacking off spin in Moeen Ali. He had Adil Rashid's wrist spin. He had a fast bowler, Jofra or whoever it was with a new ball. And he had Plunkett in the middle with a very specific plan. So he was a strategist. And variety was the key for Owen Morgan. And England, became world champions. And it just seems to me that we had 4 right-arm quicks last night, and you tried that in 2008 when you and Fred and Brody and Jimmy were, and it was tried before that, and 20 years before that, and generally 4 right-arm quicks and a spinner, it's not enough variety.
Not enough variety, and then not having a good enough option as the sort of fifth bowler. Largely down to the fact that your batting unit isn't batting long enough for your top 6 and taking responsibility. And I keep coming back to what, and I always mention Bumble because he
said there's a formula and it doesn't change.
The life he's had and the sort of generations he's transcended and the game he's played from, when it was played on black and white TV. Sorry, Bumble. When it was played on black and white TV, to going through the sort of whole eras, and the basic thing he said was have a method. Have a method. You just mentioned what Owen Morgan's method was. This team needs to get that method, understand what that method is, and work it between 1 and 50, not 1 and 44, because I don't think they're scoring fast enough and good enough, and the way the game's changed as well. Scores of 350 are the norm now. So you have to bat to 50 overs. I just think that is where we are possibly letting ourselves down. Rewind it back to the start of this section, what Brendon McCullum was saying. A lot of it is good words. A lot of it is about feel-good factor. A lot of it is about creating a great environment. Is there enough inside there that's talking in it? And I don't know this because I'm just speculating, but is there enough in there? It's not an accusation, but I'm trying to think of the right word. Is there enough in there for them planning to make sure that they're learning from the game? Because he said learning quite a bit in that. How are they learning? What are they learning? And how are they trying to make it better for the next time they come out and play, when they're going to play against a lot different sides, a lot lesser quality sides, but in a similar environment.
And just finally, England's first game's against Australia in just over a week's time in Lahore. Now, there needs to be a change of personnel, you would think. There needs to be some more variety. Real Ahmed can provide a second leg spinner along with...
I don't think he's in the squad, is he?
No, you're right.
Yeah,
absolutely. So how is it going to be different in Lahore? We know how flat it is there. Pakistan just chased 350 against South Africa in a warm-up game. We know that England's personnel is their personnel. They're going to go with 4 right-arm quicks, and if they weren't any good if they weren't effective in Nagpur, Cuttack and Ahmedabad, how's it going to be different in Lahore? It's even flatter there.
It's flatter. The only thing you're hoping is that the batters front up and take responsibilities.
Well, they're going to chase 380 now.
They're going to have to. They're going to have to get a score on the board. It's as simple as that. I don't think the bowlers has been. I don't think the bowling has been as too worrying as what the batting unit has been. I think the batting unit is the concern for me, that we're getting lots of starts and nobody taking responsibility to go on. I think that's the big issue. If England can go and get 350 on a flat one, I think they've got a chance of defending it with 4 right-arm quicks and Adil Rashid. At this minute in time, to get 350, you've got about 50 overs. We've played 8 games out here, and number 11's batted 8 times. I think that's just a simple, bite size, that this batting unit is not taking responsibility and batting the majority of the overs to give them the best chance of earning the right to get a big score.
Right, that's it then. 7-1 India won this series. It's the 4th consecutive ODI series that England have lost since the last World Cup. Things need to get better. Joss Butler's final word after the game was that they can look forward to things being better in the Champions Trophy because they haven't played at their best either as a team or individually. He's seeing that as a positive, which is quite a spin. Anyway, we'll chat to you soon.